Welcome to the FarmHouse. My name is Candace Worsbowski.
And I'm Stephanie Spiker.
And we are back from our break. We might not have been producing episodes of FarmHouse while we were away, but that doesn't mean we weren't busy. We were up at Ag Progress Days in mid-August.
Yeah, Ag Progress Days I feel like is always such a fun event to attend, and I've been going up there a handful of the past, 8 years that I've been working at Lancaster Farming. And this year was honestly a little extra special because we had our Lancaster Farming digital team booth and got to actually meet and talk to so many different people. So it was a great time. And if you stopped by to say hi to us, we're glad you did.
We also launched a new podcast here at Lancaster Farming called Super Smart Farm Show. It's a fun show that addresses different kinds of questions that kids might have about farming. And if you have littles in your life, I recommend checking it out because it is a good time.
It is also so much fun to write and voice. I feel like it's scratching a creative itch that a lot of us probably didn't know we had of doing something specifically for kids. It's been a lot of fun. And if you haven't listened to it, I really do recommend it. And honestly, even if you're an adult, it's still fun to listen to.
Yeah, and you might learn something. So again, that show is called a Super Smart Farm Show. So check it out. But for now, let's get back to the farmhouse. I recently got to talk to Yemi Amu, and I'm excited to share that interview with you all. Yemi is originally from Nigeria, but now she lives in Brooklyn, where she is the founder and director of Oko Farms, an outdoor aquaponics farm and education center. And the outdoor distinction is important because aquaponics is a type of farming that can be done indoors as well, which is great because part of what Yemi and her team do is educate people in their community on how they can use aquaponics to grow food for themselves, even if it's just on a windowsill or a countertop. And in addition to educating the community about aquaponics and how it can be used to address sustainability and food justice, Yemi and Oko Farms also grow all kinds of vegetables, fruits, herbs, and even some fiber-producing plants like flax. And of course, because it's aquaponics, there's also the fish. She has carp and catfish, I think she said tilapia, and more. It's a very cool setup, so let's welcome Yemi into the farmhouse so that she can tell us about it. Yemi, welcome to the farmhouse.
Thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
Great. So let's dive on in. Tell us about Oko Farms. So on the surface, it's an urban aquaponics farm growing a range of vegetables, fruits, flowers, and other plants. But there's more to it than that, isn't there? What's the mission and how are you accomplishing that mission?
There is so much more than that. Our mission is twofold. One, to promote aquaponics as an ecological farming method, like a solution as one of the very many we have that helps to mitigate climate change. And then the other is to use aquaponics to address food security. And we do those two things by, one, teaching people how to farm, right? So we don't believe that food security is charity. It's not like growing food and giving it away. Even though we do that, it's important to address that, but it's not a permanent solution. A more permanent and empowering or sustainable solution is actually to give people the tools to do that. So we do that through a variety of educational opportunities that we provide people. And then, of course, we talk about how aquaponics addresses a lot of climate issues, how it is a part of environmental stewardship and is part of climate mitigation, if you're thinking about agriculture in urban areas as a solution or a way to mitigate climate change.
Okay, so you're kind of already getting at what I wanted to ask you next. There are plenty of ways to farm in an urban setting. We've heard about vertical farming or small plots. Why did you go for aquaponics?
Initially, my interest or fascination with aquaponics was just its water conservation that is just integrated into it. So you're raising freshwater fish and plants, and then instead of discharging the water like is typically done in aquaculture, that water is recycled and given to plants. And then the plant roots filter out the water, and then you have clean water for fish. I just found that to be such a wonderful thing because I was born and raised in Lagos, Nigeria, and water conservation was huge for us. I remember my family buying water every month. Literally, I knew the amount of water we had every month that we used for bathing, cooking, and everything. So just a type of aquaculture that centered, a type of aquaculture, agriculture, food production that centered water conservation was a big deal for me. I just thought that was so interesting and fascinating. And then as time went on, I started to understand that like rooted in this system is also this very interesting, delicate, beautiful ecosystem where you're balancing the needs of more than one organism. And I thought for an urban area where we don't really understand or get to see ecosystems in action, but we care, about climate change, we care about, all of these things. But what does it mean? Do we understand how they work? When we're pushing for policy, when we're demanding better, what do we actually understand about how the earth works and about how ecosystems work? So I just found it to be such a special it was for me very educational.
Yeah.
And then I thought, oh, I should share this with people and people should be better educated about what it means to balance ecosystems.
Right. So like you said, you're educating people. Your farm does offer training in aquaponics. What are
Correct.
some common misconceptions that people might have about aquaponics and what are some key items you hope people will take away from those training sessions?
The number one misconception, and I always joke about this, is that aquaponics is not hydroponics,
Mm.
right? Happens to everyone, including myself. When I first heard about aquaponics, I was like, oh yeah, hydroponics, not for
Mm-hmm.
me. So that is the most common misconception. Aquaponics is not hydroponics. They're two different methods, even though they are similar.
What's the main difference between the two for people who might not know, including
But
myself?
yeah, the main difference is aquaponics involves the simultaneous cultivation of fish, plants,
Mm-hmm.
and microorganisms, whereas hydroponics is the cultivation of plants in water.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. So what are you hoping people will take away from your training sessions? Do you think that like this is something that people are hopefully able to carry into their homes?
Yes, absolutely. When people come to our training sessions, we want them to understand the differences and the nuance between aquaponics and hydroponics. We want folks to understand that aquaponics is farming. It's an ancient form of farming that is seen around the world in different places, and it is an adaptable form of farming that is great for people who don't necessarily have access to the space to grow food or even the soil or land that is conducive for nutritious, healthy food production.
Right.
So that's the main thing. If all you have is a basement, if all you have is a windowsill, if all you have is a classroom, this is a form of agriculture that you can adapt. We are outdoors, which is not common for aquaponics. Most people are indoors. We're fully outdoors. And so we want people to know, like, it doesn't, whether inside or outside, you can adapt it to your particular needs and environment.
Okay. And that's great to hear because, we hear all the time here about how, land is very precious. It's very limited. And it's oftentimes a big hurdle for people who are interested in getting into agriculture. So hearing about this as a new way in, well, not new, it's been around forever, but new to them, that's very exciting to hear about. So what kind of crops are you growing there at your farm?
We grow a variety of crops, mostly crops that challenge what people think is possible, not just in aquaponics, but also in an urban environment. So, in addition to, the cabbages and lettuce and kale and such that people are familiar with, we grow grains. We grow things like rice and sorghum. We've done millet again to show people that in an urban environment you can grow these crops and that also in aquaponics you can grow this crop. So because aquaponics is farming and you can grow any vegetable. So we do everything from strawberries to okra, beans, sorghum. We did sugar cane last year. That was so fun. And then we pressed the cane, which was so fun. When we do sorghum, we also grow for grains, even though the birds end up eating all the grains, but we still press for syrup. We've also grown a few years in a row taro, which was really fun. It's such a wonderful plant. I call it like the apocalypse plant because you can eat the leaves and you can eat the roots. Same with sweet potatoes.
Okay.
You can eat the roots and you can eat the leaves. Again, we're in an urban environment, right? So we're picking plants that you can do a lot with, where you can eat a different part of the plant so you can have more. Um, what else is fun? I think the sugarcane was the last year was so much fun to see
Okay.
that growing. Yeah, hibiscus, a lot of various things. And of course, fish, our freshwater fish. We do like a variety of those from carp to channel catfish,
Mhm.
bluegill, and sometimes tilapia.
Yeah, because that was what I was kind of going to ask next was, okay, what about the other side of the operation, which is the fish? So, I mean, are they then used for food or are they just kind of part of the growing operation there or how do you use those?
Both. So some of the fish are for food. We harvest the fish and we use them for a variety of educational classes just to learn how to harvest and clean and process and eat whole fish. We turn them into meals that are then donated to community fridges. We incorporate them into farm to table events. And then the other fish are purely to bring joy and for their waste to contribute to growing plants. So we have
Right.
ornamental fish, and then the ornamental fish also support some research that we do for fish welfare.
Okay. So you kind of mentioned that, you are giving away some food. You do have the farm to table events. How else are you integrating the community and local food system into Oko Farms sustainability?
We see ourselves as both a farm and an outdoor classroom. So we offer different types of opportunities. So we offer farm tours where people of all backgrounds come and take the tours. And we're always seeking to kind of meet people where they are and engage them so that they understand that not just aquaponics, but farming can be an integral part of urban life and society. We have art program that we have through textile art. So we also grow textile crops. We grow cotton. We're growing flax this year, a small amount as a test. We grow indigo and some other dye plants, and people get to come to the farm. So artists and people who are interested in textile arts, children and adults, get to come to the farm and learn how to dye. They learn how to spin cotton and create yarn. This year, we're going to have like a crochet and quilting workshop. So just always looking for ways to integrate like different aspects of society. We have people who are interested in urban planning or scientific research who come to our farm and we give them the space to do research, and then we have wellness. So there's herbal medicine workshops, there's culinary education workshops, just all of the things that we know people care about and are interested in. We try to offer opportunities for engagement that way.
It sounds like very holistic, like you're kind of touching all aspects of people's lives, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
as farming should.
Yeah, it should. And I
Yeah.
love that you mentioned flax because I feel like flax has been coming up a lot on this podcast. We've interviewed a few flax
Really?
farmers. Yeah, not too far from here, we have the Pennsylvania or the PA Flax Project, where they're working to try and bring flax back on like a larger scale. They just had a big harvest down there. So it's interesting to hear that you guys are also doing it up there in Brooklyn. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I read on your website that Oko is a Yoruba word, which, is paying tribute to your heritage. Can you explain what Oko means and how it relates to the farm?
Yeah. So Oko is a Yoruba word for like loosely farm, but really the true meaning is a place where agriculture is the center of life and activity. And Yoruba people primarily were farmers. Actually, farmers and textile artisans, which is interesting that I stumbled into textile arts too. So, yeah. So when you say, Monlasi Oko or Oko, it's just generally referred to as this place where life revolves around agriculture. And that's sort of what we're trying to build at Oko Farms.
Okay. So let's talk some more about you. What drew you into agriculture and its ties to food justice and sustainability?
I actually started out as a chef and a nutrition educator. My career initially involved teaching people how to cook for themselves and how to prepare healthy meals for themselves. But it involved like learning how to shop at the farmer's market, learning how to go into a supermarket and read food labels and navigate the very confusing world
Yeah.
of nutrition and reading labels and picking things, and also working with people who also needed to like use SNAP,
Mhm.
to get food. So that's where I started, and I just really kept running into this roadblock where I felt like it's not that people don't know that they're supposed to eat healthy, but there are so many barriers. And I was addressing some of the barriers, right? Like I'm addressing how to cook the food. I'm addressing how to go to the supermarket and select with so many choices, select the best one for you. But then I realized that for my low income clients, it was like they just can't afford it.
Right.
They can't. It's just so much cheaper to buy junk food and makes more economic sense to buy junk food or lower quality food than to buy vegetables. Let's be honest, right? And in New York City, eating kale and eating greens and all these things is almost seen as this elitist thing, and I really wanted to just challenge that because I grew up in an environment where the most inexpensive thing you could get is vegetables,
Right. Right.
and I just felt like, it's vegetables, it grows out of the ground. It
Hmm.
should be easily accessible to everyone, and you shouldn't feel ever believe that because you are of a certain economic status, you should not you don't somehow have the right
Right.
or
Yeah.
the ability to access an eggplant or carrot. It just makes no sense.
Yeah.
It still doesn't make any sense to me.
Right. Do you think that there's, in addition to there being a financial hurdle that people have to get over, do you think that there might also be like a cultural hurdle where you said that like buying and eating kale is seen as like an elitist thing? Do you think that there is just like ingrained in people's heads, like that's not for me? Like even if they might be able to afford it, it's just like, well, I don't do that. We don't do
Ab-
that.
Absolutely. I completely agree. And the reason why I challenge that is like sometimes I would hear from some of my clients like, oh, because again, we're in this society and our society kind of shapes our worldview. And sometimes I would hear some of my clients be like, "Oh, that's white people food," and I'm like,
Mm.
"No, vegetables is everybody's." No,
Ah.
vegetables are for everybody, and I'm African, and I grew up eating vegetables, and I grew up,
Right.
it's funny because where I come from, it's flipped. People aspire to eat junk food, which is really sad.
Interesting. Yeah. Ah.
Whereas it's the opposite here. So yes, society does shape and culture does shape how we see food completely. Absolutely.
So according to your website, you've set up multiple edible spaces around New York. Could you tell us about those?
Yes. Oh my God. So a lot of the work that I did, um, even before starting Oko Farms and after starting Oko Farms, was just bringing farms to spaces or gardens to spaces. One of the earliest I did was with a good friend of mine, where we started an organization called Adopt a Farm Box, and we had these planters. We called them farm boxes that were like really easy to put together, like Legos, almost really fun for kids to put together. And we would take them to schools, and we would have a nutrition program attached to it, and also opportunities for the school staff and parents to engage in the garden with the kids, because that's the way to ensure sustainability of school gardens, is to get everyone involved. Those were so much fun. And then I've also worked with organizations where I built gardens for seniors, or gardens. I built gardens in schools. I built gardens where all of the food was going to food pantries. And recently, like we built something right now, two aquaponic systems at supportive housing, like
Hmm.
low income housing. One is in the Bronx on a rooftop, and the other one we did just recently, which is in Brooklyn, and it's part of a senior residence.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's interesting. When I first read that you had set up these edible spaces, I thought, well, like prepared food, I suppose. But
Mm,
it's interesting that no, that like this is like you've said right from the get-go, like it's about making sure people have the tools and the knowledge to, sustain their own food source. So
absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's great. All right. We have one last question for you. It's something we ask all of our guests, and that is, what does it mean to you to be a woman in ag?
Oof. What does it mean to be a woman in ag? I'm going to say that it means that other women get to see themselves in the world of agriculture and aquaponics specifically. It brings so much joy to my heart when a lot my classes are like filled with women.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I first got introduced to aquaponics, I was so intimidated by all the plumbing and the and all of these things. I was like, oh my God, what is this? And it took a while for me to understand it's actually not that complicated.
Mm-hmm.
It's like Legos, and once you figure
Yeah.
that out, you're good to go. So it brings so much joy to my heart when young women, or women of all ages, really want to learn and they see that they can play a powerful role in their communities to bring food, and that it's just agriculture. It's not intimidating. Anyone anywhere in the world should be able to grow food for themselves if they choose to.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Yemi, for joining us here at the farmhouse. I really enjoyed talking to you, and I definitely learned about aquaponics.
Yeah, I'm so glad. That's
So
what
thank
I
you.
do. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
That was a really fun guest to have for our first episode back after our break. It's definitely a unique form of agriculture that not as many people are familiar with. So that was a lot of fun hearing everything that they're able to do with aquaponics.
Yeah, and I mean, I got to learn about the difference between aquaponics and hydroponics because I will admit that I kind of conflated the two in my mind.
I feel like that's easy to do,
Yeah.
for sure. But the thing that really stood out to me was how she said aquaponics in an urban environment can really help teach people about like complete ecosystems. I think it's so easy when you live in a place surrounded by farming and agriculture, even if you yourself did not grow up farming or did not, like I, currently don't farm, but it's something where you have kind of just an understanding of how a farming ecosystem works. Like here in Pennsylvania, it's like the farmers grow the corn and soy that gets turned into feed that feeds the dairy cattle, and obviously the dairy cattle produce milk, but they also produce the waste that gets turned into the fertilizer, and it's like this circular thing that's happening that just kind of makes sense. And she's doing the same thing just on a totally like smaller scale and with a different animal and everything. But I guess it's something where you don't realize how easy it is to understand something when you're exposed to it, versus in an urban area, they don't see that kind of ecosystem happening in real life. So it made me kind of pause and think about how my perspective and privilege is so different. And
that you're used to that. It's old hat to you. Yeah. One of the things that she talked about that I didn't really anticipate coming up, but I'm glad it did, was she talked about water conservation and how it's so hugely important to her, given her personal history, and how now it plays such a huge role in the farming that she does. I think it's just a really interesting example of how farming really does kind of take root in your DNA at some point if you're doing it, and how just like your history, your ancestors' history, like it kind of all bears out in the farming that you wind up doing. And I just thought it was just an interesting twist on it that I hadn't really considered before.
Yeah. I was also fascinated by the fact that you can grow so many things aquaponically. Like,
I had no idea about flax, that you could do that.
Yeah. I'm like, well, yeah, of course. Like, what does she grow? I'm sure like lettuce and blah, 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 the stuff that you would think about. But then she was talking about growing like sorghum and grain. And then she got into like cotton and flax. And I'm like, whoa, you can do all of that aquaponically. So that was new to me. That's very cool.
Very cool. Yeah. And then there's the fish. I loved, one of my favorite moments when we were talking was when she was listing all the fish and she said, and then we just keep some fish that bring joy. Like there's no real reason to have them there. I mean, yes, they like produce the waste that helps the plants, but they're really like ornamental fish. And I was like, yes, like I love that. I think we could all stand to do or keep something in our lives that serves no purpose other than to just bring us joy.
Yeah.
So I'm pro ornamental fish, I suppose.
I mean, not that long ago in the office, you and I were talking about like maybe getting small aquariums for our own homes because we like fish. So
that is true. That wraps it up for us here at the farmhouse. Thank you all for listening. If you liked this episode, please consider subscribing if you haven't already done so. And if you really liked this episode, please consider leaving us a review.
If you have any questions or thoughts about this episode, you can email us at farmhouse@lancasterfarming.com.
You can also find us on social media at Lancaster Farming on most platforms.
Thank you again for visiting the farmhouse. I'm Stephanie.
And I'm Candace.
We'll talk to you later.
Bye.
This episode of The Farmhouse is copyright 2025 by Lancaster Farming Newspaper, part of the Steinman Communications family.
It was written by Stephanie Spiker and Candace Wierzbowski. It was produced by Eric Perlock. Mixing by Justin Berger. Music by Tin Bird Shadow.